Hey everybody, welcome back to Modeler Mondays. So glad to have you on. Sorry about our little technical hiccup right there, but we're super happy to be here. This is the third episode in the live stream series Modeler Mondays, every other Monday unless scheduled otherwise. Our new schedule is actually on the Discord, so if you're a part of that, please come on in. We'll be able to actually see where these Modeler Mondays are being hosted and where you'd like to see them. And so right now it is at 1 p.m. EST. It will always be at 1 p.m. EST. Modeler Mondays provides tips, tricks, tutorials, and an insight into our professional unique workflows when creating in both VR and on desktop in Adobe Substance 3D Modeler. And so, hey, I'm Val. You might know me as foxxr in the Discord, just in general on the community in the internet. You'll also see me on Twitter too. Today we have Wes McDermott. Hey, Wes, give us a bit of an introduction.
Hey everybody, my name's Wes. I've been working with the Substance team for quite a while, and it's really awesome to be here. It's always fun just to jump on a stream and just show some stuff, talk to the different users out there and things like that. So hey, thanks a lot for joining me today.
Yeah, we're so stoked to have you. It's honestly an honor. We had some of the people in the community being like, "Oh, Wes is going to join." We know that you have a big presence just in Substance in terms of painter, stager, etc. too.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, and so for today's stream, we'll be looking at the strengths of hybrid workflow. So whether or not you create in virtual reality or desktop, neither should really hinder you from being able to create beautiful models. And so we would really like to showcase, we know Wes actually comes from a background in polygon modeling, and where he has or what he has created in Modeler is something that's really interesting, because I think that there's been a bit of a kind of like a brain change or a workflow or mind change for you. Isn't that right, Wes?
Yeah, and I'll totally get into that when I start kind of showcasing what it is I'm going to be covering. But yeah, it definitely took a little bit, but yeah, I just kind of had this I kind of like a paradigm shift in when it finally snapped for me, like, oh, okay, so I should look at Modeler like this, and then it became quite fun to jump in and just start to create.
And we're so stoked to hear about that. And yeah, we really just want to see what's going on in terms of your unique workflow, and hear a lot of what you think about the actual tool, what you think about where the industry might be going, anywhere in between. And so what we'll do is we will move into your screen share. I believe you have something to kind of share with us today.
Yeah, definitely. Just gonna chill and just go through some stuff in Modeler.
Cool. All right. Your screen is being shared, Wes.
Okay, great. So yep, there we go. We can see it. All right. So everybody, yeah. So basically today, all I wanted to do was just sit and talk about some Modeler stuff, just some workflows and things like that. And actually, what you're seeing here is just a little project that I worked on that I used to try to learn Modeler. So there's a lot of issues with it. Like, I'm talking about the project I made. It's not perfect. It's not awesome or anything, but it's just something that I used to just try to. Let me jump in, and I was really inspired by the Modeler team, Joshua in particular, because he was always creating all these really neat environment scenes, and I thought, oh man, I really would love to try to do that. So again, I just jumped in and gave it a shot. So what you're seeing here is a scene that I created. My end goal was I want to create something in Modeler, and then I want to take it into Unreal. I was using UE5, and I wanted to just create a little environment. And so that's what I did. So I've got what I call the shack. So you have the shack, the boat, the rocks, and that's all just content that I created in Modeler. The trees was something that I just grabbed that was free from I think one of the old Unreal projects that Epic had created. So I just kind of grabbed those and threw some trees in. But overall, you can see that this is the scene. And so I'm going to show just a couple of the screenshots. So if we look, this here is the ground. The ground for this particular project, I was also wanting to test our new Unreal Engine 5 plugin. So I think in a later stream, I'd love to, Val, if it's okay for you, I'd love to come back and run through the whole Unreal project as well. But these are just a few of the screenshots here. So you can see this is kind of the hero image of what I'm working on. I've got this little piece here. I exported using USD, and I brought that in as a USD file into Unreal. And then using our new Substance plugin for Unreal Engine 5, we have new triplanar shaders. So I just used the triplanar options with the Substance materials and just quickly just was throwing and dragging and dropping materials on here, like the rope and the wood. And I have to say, it was a blast because like I wasn't worrying about topology in Modeler. I wasn't worrying about UVs. I was just, dragging and dropping materials and kind of, just having fun really and just learning a bunch of stuff on my own. This here is just kind of more of the dock. I was also playing around with UE5's, ocean stuff and just how I can make this all kind of relate and come together using, stuff that I created from Modeler and then also using Substance materials from 3D assets and so on. One of the other things that we'll talk about is this little barrel piece. So I have a barrel that's in here. It's quite terrible, but so I did another one that I thought we could do a tutorial on, but it's kind of something like this, where I was experimenting with the workflow of, can I go from Modeler to Substance Painter and then render in Stager? And so anyways, we'll talk a little bit about that. This is part of the little boat piece that I had created. This here was interesting. Again, it's not awesome because I was still learning, but this is where I took a real kind of experimental workflow. So for me, I will say I've never really been a fan of VR. It's just been something that I haven't really, it's just not for me really, right? So I kind of get VR sick, so it was one of those things. And so I was kind of hesitant to really try it, and I was more interested in like what the desktop could do. And I was having a lot of fun with the desktop, but then I started playing with VR as well. It did help to get a better headset, so now I'm using a Quest 2. I had an old headset, so like the resolution was pretty bad. But anyways, I ended up just kind of starting to kind of, just let go and just experiment and have fun. And then, before I knew it, I was like, hey, VR is a lot of fun too. So again, it's kind of neat to just in my own self, what I try to do is just never close my mind to things like, just keep the toolbox open. Let's see. And, it's funny, like a year ago, I would have thought, I'm never going to use VR, but now I'm using it a bunch. So anyways, that was a fun journey, I'll say, coming from someone who's very much desktop oriented. I did some quick little rock pieces. Again, they're not awesome. I was just doing something really quick just to bring it in. And then this was like the model piece. You can see here's where I did some texturing of the boat in Painter, just some quick little rock assets and so on. And then here's the final scene. So what I'll do is let's just jump over to Modeler and let's just start playing around in here and just going through some different techniques and things like that. So one of the things I'll say that I kind of did a little bit wrong, again, when I first started using this, I was trying to figure out like how Modeler works. So, of course, it helps a lot to always build things to scale. And I think my scale was really off, but it was okay because I kept basically all the pieces and parts kind of relative to each other. So inside of Unreal, I was able to scale it appropriately and it was fine. But again, it's just kind of like that old school way of thinking, like, just model to scale and you'll be fine. You can come up here to File, Import Mesh, and you can import in a mesh. So what I was doing was importing in the mannequin from UE5 as like a scale reference, like a person. But then I am using lots and lots of beta versions of Modeler, just testing it a bunch. And so like at one point that file became corrupted and blah, blah, blah. Next thing I know, somewhere along the lines, my scale got messed up. But anyways, it's fine. So, you want to think about that. So you'll see that what I have here is one huge like kind of grouping, which is basically, I have this little boat and I have the shack piece here. And so the version I'm using today is a beta build of 14. I'm not sure if that's in the public release yet. It might be, but we'll see. But anyways, this is my group. And then if I just kind of like, have my group, if I double click, I can like jump into this group. And now you'll see that I've gone through and just I'm creating a bunch of groups of different pieces. So for example, if you look here, if I'll go into these pillar pieces, I have these little pieces here, and these are just really simple pieces. Actually, it's just, come over to my clay tool, I grabbed the cylinder, I made a cylinder. And then one of the things that I was kind of doing here, so if I just scale this guy up and then move this piece, if you right click and look, you can see what kind of resolution you're working at. Some of the newer tools, we can actually add a little fillet here. So what I was doing was like, hitting the space bar to create a piece of clay and then holding down shift and I get my shift, this is my smooth, and then I was just kind of smoothing the edges. And that was just a way of me to go in and just kind of create, you can see here some of this, um, some of this kind of slopes and things like that. And because I was using a lower resolution when I actually did this, I'm just going to undo all that. I get all these kind of like little bumpiness and things like that in my resolution, but because of what I was creating here, it actually was working to my benefit. So you can see that I just kind of let the low resolution kind of help me in that case, which was kind of fun. And then I have some other pieces like here, like these little pieces of wood plank. And we'll talk about this here too, but these are just little pieces and then duplicating them. So let's look at how we could do something like that. So first thing I do is right click and I start with a new layer, and I'll come over to my clay tool and I'll grab here my square, just move it off to the side so we can kind of see what we're doing. You can hold down Control and left click and scale up and down. So I'm just going to scale it up a little bit. And then you have these little dots here, these little nodes, and we can use these to just, again, reposition what we're working with here. So I'm just going to, just create something that represents, let's say, just like a little wood plank.
Yeah, and you're currently working in desktop, like strictly right now, right, Wes? Like,
yeah, that's correct. Yeah, I still to this day like desktop is still my main thing. I just like it better. It's just again me. But as you'll see, I will jump into VR in a bit, and
Okay.
I'll show you like the reason why I did that. But for me, for things like this, where I'm doing like an environment piece, and I just want to dupe and move things around, and I'm doing a lot of movements like this, where I'm particularly choosing an axis and moving it, just some basic translation. Just me personally, I feel, using the mouse, that's perfect for that. But like in VR, as we'll talk about later, the way that you can use like the VR controllers to like twist your wrist and get some really nice deformations like that, you can't do even if I had a Wacom pen. So it's quite incredible once I kind of, again, open my mind and let myself just play with it. So here, what we'll do, one of the things I always like to look at is just be cognizant of my resolution. So this is one of the things I'll talk about. So I've always been a polygon modeler, and I go all the way back to like, Lightwave is what I started in. And then I went from Lightwave to like the early Moto betas. And so, most of my career learning to model, I was just in Moto, and then eventually moved to using Maya, and just, I just love 3D tools. So I just basically use anything I can, really. And so when I approached Modeler for the first time, I was trying to take all of the knowledge I have about polygons and vertices and how I would model that way, and I was trying to do that here. So because this is not a polygon modeler, you're using SDF geometry, so it's like a voxel. Like, you are not dealing with points and vertices and faces. And so here I am using all these tools. I'm like, well, I don't have this tool and I don't have that tool and I need this tool. One day it just snapped and I realized, okay, so I don't have all these tools, but when you're in a polygon modeler, you need those tools because that's the workflow that you got to use to push points around. But when you're in a tool like this, like Modeler, where I'm no longer really thinking about points and edges, it kind of frees your mind. Like you're like, okay, well, I don't have a lot of tools, but you really don't need all those tools. And so then it became kind of like a freeing exercise where it just snapped. And I was like, wow, okay, well, I need to basically, it's kind of like this old way of learning, right? Like, you might have like a cup, you have to empty your cup so you can put, new liquid in it, basically, and it's basically like, because if you leave like tea in the cup and you try to put more in it, you just overfill and you're not going to learn. So you have to empty your cup and start over. And so that's what I did. I took all of my knowledge of polygon, vertice stuff, not all of it, right? It's still going to be applicable in some ways, but some of that stuff I quit trying to fit one workflow into Modeler, and I just let Modeler be what it is. And it became this really nice kind of concepting tool for me. Okay, so sorry about all that rambling there. Let's see.
Not at all. I'd love to hear.
Yeah, I have this wood, and so I can do something like maybe round the edges. I'll put a little fillet on here, something like this. You can do a little chamfer. So let's say that I've just rounded this. Now, what kind of made me go on that tangent about this is I do want to talk about resolution. So, with anything, there's resolution, right? So you can see you get this little checker pattern, and as I, get larger checkers, it's kind of like UV texel density, really. So the larger the checker pattern is, the less resolution you have, and the more texture pattern you have, the more resolution. And so sometimes it can be overkill, like, oh, I don't want to have all that res. So you can see that what I'm doing is, just setting it just a res I think is going to work for me. I can always move up and down. So once I have something, I just hit the space bar, and that's like creating clay. So basically what you have is, I like to look at Modeler as this option, this tool I have, this clay tool. That's all it is. It's just a tool. And then I've put this little piece of clay here. And then I would go in and start to, just mess with it some. So one way that works really well, because I use a lower resolution, is I just hold down the shift key, which quickly gets me here to my smooth tool. And you have a strength, and you have some modes, and you can come in and just start to, just tweak this and just rough up the surface. So I kind of, it's weird to say rough up the surface with smooth, but in the way that it kind of does this, I like that it does what it does. I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. So you can see I'm just going in, and I like this little shape that it's making here, just for me, just smoothing something. And you can see this little tool keeps getting in my way, but that's all right, just because I'm not using the actual smooth tool. Let's just jump over to that, then I don't have to worry about it. So, here I'm going in. I like that, okay, I'm just going to round this little edge here, and then keep this one a little bit sharper, and so on and so forth. So I was just kind of doing stuff like that. Then another thing I would do is I would, hit the E button on the keyboard. It takes me to what's called the eraser tool. And so I can't really see anything, right? So you have these placement options. So a technique that I like to use is there's an option here for surface placement mode. If you hit G, like grab on the keyboard, it will basically snap the tool to the surface. And you can see that it's trying to snap to the surface. So a lot of times I'll use G just to kind of get, like, here, I want to do something on this edge. And then I hit G again to get me out of it. It takes me back to what we call gizmo placement mode. And now I can just, go in and just start to play around with gizmo here. So it's just a quick way of just trying to get something that you might want in terms of a shape. So I'm going to do something just like a weird looking little shape like this, and then just kind of move it out. And then what I can do is just hit the space bar once I have it, and you can see it just kind of cuts into the surface. I didn't really like that one. Whoops. Let me go back to this guy. So I'm just going to hit G again, scale this guy down, rotate it into place, little piece like this. And just do something like that. Maybe push it over on the edge. And then I can just kind of, just hit the space bar to just push into it. So now I've made just like a little cut here. And you can see that, you get a nice little beveling already. It's just the nature of working with the surface that we have. And then I can kind of smooth it out. And then I'm just getting these little wood pieces. So I'll do the same thing, like hit G, maybe move over in this area, hit G again to go to my gizmo, rotate this piece around.
Yeah, and because you have like opacity on your tool, you can kind of see where you're cutting as well, right?
Yeah, exactly. And so, that's not a great cut. I don't like that. But I'm just going in and just playing around, just with these surfaces here. So let's do, something like this. And
yeah. And so when you're making these cuts currently, like in your head, are you like thinking about it like as if you were to see a plank of wood? Like, are you following more grain? Or are you thinking like, oh, maybe something heavy fell on the stock right here?
Yeah, I mean, it's always best to have some reference sitting up, which I don't right now. But like, yeah, I'm just trying to make like just some little indentions of something in here, really.
Oh, cool.
But yeah, like it would be super helpful to kind of go based on, like you said, oh, there's some wood grain here I'm trying to make, stuff like that. So basically, you can see that, I'm just going to rotate this so I get just an edge. And again, you have these little manipulators here, these little dots. And if I hold down Control and grab, I can scale from one side to the other. So maybe I can do something like that, and then hit space bar and just cut into the wood and then smooth it back, get something like this as a little piece. So let's say that we had something like that for just my wood plank, and that's just one of them. And I'm inside a layer. So the next thing I'll do to like get outside of my layer, I can just come over in an empty area and just double click. And now I'm just out at like the root level. So again, I have, or I'm up one more level than where I was. So now I have this little wood plank piece here. And it's not perfect, but let's just say it works for this little example. And so then what I was doing was just hitting Control D to duplicate it and then moving it over. And then a nice little shortcut. You have these little rotation, and if you move your mouse away, you can get nice fine rotation. But if it's real close, it's pretty. You get a pretty intense rotation. But what I like to use is just hold down the Control key and then left click, and you can see it just does these little quick snap rotations. So I might snap rotate it and then Control click, to flip it to the other side. Now, what I would have done on these guys is I went in, if we look, you can see I kind of played around. Well, no, I didn't actually. I was gonna say, I thought I did some on the other edge, but I didn't, because I knew I was just gonna see the top. But let's say that I did a version where I had some, stuff on top. And then I can go back to this one, Control V, let's just snap it into place, Control click a couple times. Then I'll select both of these, Control V, and then just here I'm just making like a little wood plank system.
Oh yeah.
So, and you can tell it, you get some neat little things like, here, let me just select these guys and I'll slightly rotate that, push it over here, do something like that, maybe.
That really didn't take you long. It was pretty quick.
Yeah. And then once I kind of have these guys, one thing I wish we had, it was a lasso select, but we don't have that yet. So once I have all these selected, you can hit Control G, which does a group, or just right click and say group. And now I have this plank piece as a group. So maybe I want to, duplicate it. One of the other kind of cool things you can do is once we duplicate it, I can actually flip it to my other side. So now it's mirrored on this other side here if I wanted to do things like that, or, flip it this way. And now maybe this is going to be part of a fence. And you can see that you can start building walls and stuff like that pretty quickly. So that's kind of what I did here for most of everything you see. It was that simple. I was going into each one of these pieces and, just doing little eraser cuts. They're like little booleans, right? So I'm going in and just cut, and just building these little pieces up. You can see the rope pieces. It's just a tube. And then I just did some warping here to get that to work. So again, to show you how that works, let's see. We'll go into here. I'll double click. And then we have a warp tool. So it's just the W key is the warp. So same kind of song and dance. What I like to do really quick, I can hit Control and left click. Actually, that doesn't, for some reason on warp, that doesn't work. So I have to scale up. But you can see that if I just use my my mouse right now, I can actually just pull this around. So you pull, you get this really intense geometry, but when you let go, it basically remeshes. So it's not even a remesh. It's just the way the voxels work, I guess. I don't know. But I like to think of it as like a remesh. So you don't have to worry about the topology so much. So it'll go in. Now you can see there, it kind of broke because I went pretty extreme. But, you can go in and, but what's neat is, watch, I just do a smooth and I can get a break like that. It's kind of cool. It's really easy to kind of get, it's really easy to get your geometry back, even if you make a mistake. So I use that to do like a quick cut. And now it's like, I've got this hole here. It's very malleable, I guess you could say. I don't know. It's one of the things that the guys always say on at work is like, it truly is like you're just working with real clay. It's like if I had some Play-Doh and I just ripped it in half, and now I've got these two pieces. But the way I kind of like to work with stuff like this is I'll use my mouse, I'll hit G to go back to the placement mode, and now I have this big widget, right? And then there's a hardness value, so I'll hit R, does just a quick reset of the gizmo. And then if I hold down the space bar and I move, I can get just a movement like this. So I might scale this way up, hold down space bar, and then you can see this is actually how I was kind of working to get, like the rope is kind of hanging from the gravity and stuff like that. So just little simple deformation stuff like that. But all the planks, all the stuff was done the same way. If you come over to like these little wood pieces, all done the same way. I did a couple of them and then just bent and warped them in different ways and then duplicated them. The house itself, you can see it's just me like adding just a bunch of these little wood planks. From a piece of reference that I saw, this is kind of how this little like little shack was built. And I thought, it's a lot of trouble, but you know what? I'm going to do it this way. I could have like just done walls and let a substance material kind of handle that. But I just thought it was kind of fun to just go in and just make these individual little pieces. So you can see, Val, I think that's your dog. Do you have a dog?
That is definitely my dog. So apologies to anybody. I'm not flatulent, I promise. My dog, he lives under my desk and he snorts only during live stream.
Yeah, it sounds like a bulldog.
It definitely is. I'll show everybody afterward.
Oh, okay. Wow. All right. Yeah. Okay, so you can
funny.
see, I just have like these little wood pieces and things like that, and I'm just, I just manually just kind of put everything together. But just like regular modeling, you can see, and I'm tearing my house up, but you can see that like I started with just, a block out, right? Just basic shapes, and then once I kind of had everything like I wanted, then I went in and the walls themselves were just flat walls, and then once I had all these pieces in, I just duplicated them. And what I did was I made just like a set. Like I had like, let's see, like say I had like a few of these guys here. like this, and they were just off to the side. And then what I kept doing was just going, okay, let me grab this one, let me duplicate it. And then I was, moving it, flipping it around just every time I used it, grab this guy, duplicate it, and then was just like moving it around, flipping it, so on, like doing and just lining it up and stuff. And then that's just basically how I kind of built the whole thing. So this is really, really simple. The next phase that I want to get into was this little boat piece. And I want to show you a little bit about that and how I went into VR for that. And then I want to go through the whole step of building like a better barrel here. But most part, you can see that it was pretty simple. So let's do this. Let's jump into a new scene. And let me just talk a little bit about the boat piece. So when I was looking at like the rowboat, the hard part was like, trying to figure out, how to make the overall shape. So this isn't going to be like, a super awesome tutorial, but let me just kind of go into it a little bit. So I'm going to start here with the boat as like a shape, like say something like this. So again, this is just a tool. I don't actually have any, I'm just going to always say clay instead of geometry, but I think you could say geometry too. But this is like just a piece of clay, but it's not really, it's like a tool until I make the clay. So what I want to do first is, well, let's check our resolution. So I right click and I just mouse over and I can see my resolution. And I think that's fine. We'll just go with that. So now that we have it, I'm going to just take my taper and adjust my taper. Okay, so whoops, that's in the wrong direction, right? So what I'll do is hold down Control. I'm going to flip here on this Y axis or rotate it, but holding down Control is going to let me just snap rotate. So that's kind of what I wanted to do there. And then I think this is too tall, so I'll hold down Control, grab this little widget, and then just bring that up. And now if I want to do a uniform scale this way, I can do so without holding down the Control key. So I get something like this, and then let me play with maybe rounding this here. So I'm just going to round it. So you can think of this is the point of my boat, and this is kind of like the front. So just doing something like this. Again, let me just check the resolution. Let me go up one level now that I've done that. Okay, I think that'll work. So now we'll hit spacebar, and I've created this piece of clay. And I'm going to come over here to my smooth tool. And so now I have this actual piece of clay, and I have smooth. Well, since everything I know was just created right at the origin, if I right click, I can enable my symmetry. And this gives me the idea of seeing what that symmetry plane is. So now you can see, I hold down Control and left click will let me scale the brush size. And you can see that I can smooth on both sides. So what I want to do is just come in and just smooth this bottom piece for my boat. So I'm just going in and smoothing. And with smooth, you have a couple options. There's this one that fills cavities. And we'll kind of go through these a little bit here in a second. But this one is fills cavities and flatten bump. And this one just flattens bumps. So depending on what you want to do, and I'll show you in a little bit like where the fill cavity would kind of come into play. But now you can see that I'm just going in and smoothing this. Just the bottom, and I'm just using my mouse to sculpt, right?
Oh wow!
So, yeah, so not right. I'm not even trying to be like getting into an awesome workflow here, but it's just,
no pens,
and I don't really care. It's a little right. It's a little bumpy and stuff. Like I said, this isn't like a final tutorial, but you can see I smoothed a little too crazy, and it's bumping up the bottom. Oh, it's no big deal. We'll fix it later. But imagine this is like the back of the boat, and this is the front, and I want to really work on the bow of this section. So now this is where I'm going to jump into VR. So let's see if I can do this, right? Let's see if I can just do the headset. This is the first time I've ever demoed VR on anything like this. So bear with me, guys.
Only here, y'all.
Right. Let's see if I can do it. All right. So like I said, hey, I'm not a VR dude, but
it looks good, Wes.
All right. Look at this. I'm doing it. Okay. So now, yeah. So now, I'm just chilling in my chair. I've got this Quest 2, which I really like, and I'm using the PC link to my PC, right? So now what's kind of fun is, and this is kind of cool. I can just kind of lean back in my chair, and I'm really starting to dig it, like I said. And I can just, I'm using my left. I got this controller for the left hand. Hey, Val, can you see like the controllers and stuff?
Yeah, I can see your controllers. Okay, cool. You're all good.
All right, cool. So you got like the controller for the left hand. And then if you got these little trigger buttons here and you can zoom in and out. What's really cool about this is like, see, this is like a tiny little boat that's going to sit on my shelf. But if I zoom this in really big, this could be like an actual rowboat that I could stand up in my chair and like I'm stepping into it. So that's kind of neat for the scale. But anyways, let's talk about what the bow of the boat, right? So this is why I use VR. So I'm going to hit this little tool button. I'm on the left hand, and I use my thumb, and I hit the tool button. This little palette comes up. And then first things first, I want to create what's called here a new layer. So now I've got this new layer, right? And then I'm going to come over and I'm going to grab, I guess, a cylinder. And you'll notice here that I still have my symmetry on. Sometimes when you're working in VR, it's kind of helpful to have this little symmetry stuff still going, because that way you know that whenever you create something, like if I, especially if I on my right hand, I got to know left from right. On my right hand, the button, the top button here, lets me go. Whoop, no, I want to hit the bottom button, the two arrows. It lets me see, through the shape. So, but when I put these two shapes together, I know that it's pretty symmetrical. So I'm gonna hit the top button and it lets me scale the shape down. So I'm gonna do something like that. And then I'm just gonna tweak it slightly. So I get like this little oval shape. And then what you can do, this is what kind of I thought was neat. So I'm looking at this clay like it's a tool, right? And then if I move my left hand over, I'm like grabbing this piece of tool and I just use my trigger button and I can move it like this. So it's like me repositioning this little tool in my hand. So I thought that was really cool. So the only reason I'm doing that is because the way I'm holding my hand, I want to be able to hold the tool like this. So it just makes it a little bit easier. So I'm going to kind of do something like this. I'm using the thumbstick to like scale it down. So I'm just going to position it something like this. And then hit the trigger to create some clay there. So we get something like that, right? Oh. And then I'm going to right click. I'm sorry, not right click. Hit my, let's see, I'm on my left hand, hit my thumb on the tool button. And then I move over to my resolution. See? So I'm looking at the checkerboard. Let's just kick it up a little bit more. There we go. So now this is why I want to jump into VR for this, because I want to now go to the warp tool. Okay, so now I got my warp and it's just this little circle, right? And you have things like your size and your hardness and the strength. So I can pull the strength down and I have my hardness is all the way to 0. So it gives me this nice fall off. Now, this is where the VR comes in, because I have my right hand, right, where I'm like grabbing onto this piece and I can just move this. So you could technically, yes, you could do this with the mouse. But what's really cool is like, so I'm using this little, my index finger for like the trigger. And if I click, and now if I twist my wrist, I can get like, look at these crazy shapes you can get. Like, oh, look, that's some kind of weird like handle or something, And I'm going to use my left stick to the left to undo it. So this is where VR becomes awesome for me. Because now, look at this. I'm just tilting my wrist because I want to put like a little curve in here. So watch, I just do this and like tilt my wrist a little bit, or actually I'm curving my wrist this way, and my arm, I'm moving it up. So I'm just trying to get this. And then you have this little trigger. If you hold it all the way down, it's like using full pressure on a Wacom pin. But if you just barely press the trigger, you can get this nice little fall off like this. So I'm just going to do something like this and then pull that piece down, pull this in. You can use the trigger to make your scale, whoops, like this. If I need to, let's rotate around and just look at this and just pull that up. And look at how I'm just twisting my wrist and I'm getting this little piece in here. So we'll do that, there we go.
I've actually never considered that before, but I guess the type of tool that you're inputting into how you like make something actually really does matter, because in this case with VR, you kind of have that degree of freedom with how you can move your arms just in the space in front of you, right?
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. So here you can see I'm just kind of making this little piece, this front piece of the boat. And look, I just push in here a little bit and then push it. It's so crazy because like I'm like have this thing right next to my head. And then I've got, my left trigger and I'm just pushing it like that, with my hand. So it reminds me like, when I was a kid, I used to like to draw. And the one thing that I always thought was, man, I was terrible at perspective and stuff, right? And my thing in my head, I was always thinking, man, if I could just pick the thing up and just move it with my hand. And now here we are in, what is it, 2022? I mean, I know we had this earlier, but for me, it's 2022. And I'm like, look, I'm doing that thing I wanted to do when I was a kid. So it's just kind of fun. So now what we'll do is we'll come into the side here. And this is look at this. I'm just pulling this out because this is the part of the bow of the boat that I want to just pinch in. And then I want to push this around like this. And I'm just going to keep pulling this. Val, did I lose you?
No, I'm still here.
No, okay.
You can't hear my dog snoring anymore?
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Yeah, I think I screwed something up on my, it's okay. We won't worry about this. I screwed something up when I did this on this side, but here, let's do that. But you can see that I'm going in and I'm going to push that in, push that in. Here we go. So now this is kind of like that, this little bottom piece. And I could be a whole lot more careful with this, but I'm not going to worry about it. Okay, so let's say this top piece I want to take care of. Well, here's another trick. We'll hit the my thumb. We'll come over to the eraser. Let's grab the cube. Now I can move this like this, but sometimes that becomes annoying. So what I'm going to do is let's see if I can remember. Click. Yeah. So I'm on my thumb. I'm clicking that button. So now I get this guy, and if you double click on your trigger, this trigger, it takes me to my little widget guy, and that double click, all that did was it just recentered everything. So now that I have this, you can see I'm using my little gizmo, and I push that right there because my hands are really shaky. So, and then I can just hold my trigger down, and I'm just erasing that piece off. There we go. All right, so now that I have that piece, you can see it's 2 pieces, right? So I can select, and then I'm pressing my little trigger here and then selecting this guy. And what I want to do is hit my little menu button, right? My menu button, yeah. And then there's an option here for merge. And now it's going to merge everything together. So it's one piece. And then I want to go into this piece. So you kind of mouse over, or I don't know what this is. The blue pointer over this guy, and then you push up on the left stick, and I'm in this thing. So now that I have that, let's go to the smooth tool. And now, and see, I'm smoothing. I just go and see I have this little edge. So I'm just going to smooth that out like that. And I'm just going to blend those shapes. And so now that's how I'm getting these nice little curvature shape, like for the boat. So it was like that. And then here's what I was talking about. So you get this little edge here, but with the different smooth options. So there's this one that's fill cavities. So fill cavities, it'll go in and just kind of, it's like almost like it's almost like a clay brush sort of. See, it's like filling that cavity, but it's giving me bumpiness. So I can leave it in the middle option, which is going to fill and remove bumps. But I could just go through and kind of, I need more resolution. I need to scale a little bit better and so on. I mean, be a little bit more careful on when I'm smoothing and stuff. But it's neat how I'm getting like this crisp edge here for my boat. Like I like this shape here. And this piece back here is pretty cool. But watch, I can just smooth that into the boat. And then now I'm holding the trigger, like just pressing it barely. And you can hold it a lot and smooth, and then barely press it, and then just slightly feather that in. There we go. So you get like that little bit of the bump under the boat like that.
Oh, nice.
All right. So anyways, there's that. So here we go.
My understanding from poly modeling too is that I get anxiety whenever I feel like I need to merge shapes, because I'm like, when I finally have to like go in and look at the topology of this afterward, am I going to have to worry about how something boolean together if I got any broken n-gons all over the place? Or
no, yeah, like that's the thing with this, and that was what my epiphany was. It's like I know I'm freed from that. I'm freed from points and edges and pushing and pulling and I love Boolean workflows. Like that's one of the things I do always, got all these plugins to do that, but there's all this cleanup stuff. So now I'm kind of back to doing just that Boolean stuff, but just very simply. Now I don't like that, right? So that's when I could jump into like, say, this piece. And now I can just look at this. You can just go in and just like, maybe take this front part of the boat and do something like that. I don't know, just kind of probably ruin it here, but let's just do, something like that.
That's so cool.
I don't know. That wasn't awesome, but let's just undo that then. But anyways, you can see I can kind of go in and do that piece. So now what I'll do here, let me undo it again. There we go. All right. So let's say I got that piece. Let's take the headset off. Okay. And so what's really cool is now we're just right back in desktop mode. Okay. So then, what I can do is like say, okay, well, I do want to go back to the warp. So I hit warp, the W, G, get my little pill here, hit R to quickly reset it. So I know I'm going through that fast. And again, because it's not a tutorial, but I just wanted to show you guys like, that you can, it's just, a couple keyboard shortcuts and you got what you want. And then, so I'm going to move this piece up into here. So you can see where I'm targeting this one specific area, hold down the space bar. And now I'm just pushing this out so I can get a little bit more of a bowing here and that. So that was one of the things that I did. Again, the shape's not looking awesome. I didn't take a lot of time on it, but just to show you guys one other thing that I would probably do with this was I could take this shape, duplicate it, move it up, scale it in. So I'm holding down Control, left mouse button to scale it in, push it down a little bit more. And now with this shape selected, I right click and I go to my Boolean options. I'm going to set this as a subtraction. select this guy, and then hit apply. So it's there. I still can have this little red shape if I want it, but I don't need it. So I hit delete. And now I've got the inside of my boat. So that's kind of
Nice.
how I did that. And then, of course, it was more tweaking and things like that. So overall, that was kind of the thing. This is a terrible shape. I'm sorry, guys. But anyways, it was just kind of a quick demo on how like I was trying to use VR to put that together. So just looking at the time, I think we're doing okay.
Yeah, you're good.
Next, I'm going to do like another new scene, and I'm going to talk about the barrel piece because that was actually kind of fun to do as well. Again, the other thing that I really am having fun with was like, so I was just in this VR headset, and then now I just take it off, and now I'm in desktop. I love that it switches like that. Pretty cool. So you can, use the techniques that work best. It doesn't mean like, hey, I'm in VR all the time and it has to be that way. Yeah, there's some things that you can do in VR that just actually work pretty well. So I just do those, like the way that I can use my wrist to twist and make shapes. It's pretty awesome. Just because of the way the hand controllers work. But then there's some things it's like, what's a little easier. I'd rather have, be able to check other things while I'm working. So I'll be in desktop. Okay, so let's go to our clay tool now, and I'm going to grab just a cylinder, and I'll scale it this way. So one thing to note is that like you have these little marks, right? And this is still in beta. I think they may improve this, but if you'll notice, you have like a little dot, hash mark, whatever, and then you have a big one. This big one, like if you go from here to this big one, that's going to be 1 meter. And then this hash mark that's slightly bigger than this one, that's 0.5 meter. So when you're building things to scale, that's just something to keep in mind and think about. I'm not worrying about it at all. So you'll notice I'm not building anything to scale. I'm just ridiculously just setting sizes arbitrarily. Another thing is like, if you ever do work that way, as long as you build things and they're all relative to each other and the right things, you can always scale them up and down if you want to. But it is best to try to work at scale when you can. The only reason I want to bring that up is because the object scale does affect the resolution. So, if you're at I don't know if it is really, really small, it might be like super dense or vice versa, one of the other ways, but you just have to just watch your resolution. So what I do is I always just right click and okay, there's where it is. Just mouse over and I can see it. Okay. So speaking of
continue, really.
Oh yeah, sure.
So I noticed that you mentioned resolution a lot, and like that's something that you're very conscious of. Is there a reason why you're so conscious of resolution? When
yeah. Well, a couple things. Like I guess with anything, right? We're on computers that have limited resources, right? So like I don't want to just be like throwing millions of geometry or voxels everywhere and just increase. You want things to be efficient. The other thing too is that as of right now, and I don't know if I'm sure this will change this optimization thing, but like when you use things like the warp tool, like if you have like a really, really dense mesh and then you warp something, like there's like a slight delay, there's like a little delay to it. Whereas if you have like a lower res and you warp, so sometimes it might be, hey, warp a little and then increase res, but sometimes you might get something that's just a little too lumpy, a little too, rounded. So you just gotta just watch yourself. But it's just like any time that you've ever worked with geometry in any type of modeling application, you're always thinking about resolution. I just like here that it's just looking at a checker pattern. It's just like, oh, okay, yeah, that's like something like this, like that's ridiculous for a cylinder that's going to be on the bottom of the barrel. It's just a waste, right? And then also when we go to export, you'll see that there's ways to set what resolutions, your overall kind of target count that you want to have, because it is going to generate polys from that. But then like, it depends. Like if you wasted a bunch of polys at the bottom of something, it's just a waste. Okay, so anyways, we get something like this. Let's do like, I don't know, maybe I'll do like a little fillet here on the edge. And as always, hit spacebar. So I've created a piece of clay. Now what I'm going to do, see if I just move my tool up. So again, that's just a tool. It's not, it's not a piece of geometry. It's just a tool. This is the geometry now. And then like I said, if I hit R on the keyboard, like reset, it just resets the tool to the origin. Or if I had this rotated in some weird way and I hit R, it just resets it. So quick way to work. So next thing I want to do is I want to create some little wood planks. So now I'll grab another tool. Let's right click, create a new layer. Now that I'm in the layer, I'm going to just scale this guy a bit. So let's do this. Let's move him. Let's come over to the side, move this guy down. Now, one thing that's different with Modeler, and again, I don't know if this is going to change in the future, but you're like, hey, I don't have an outliner. I don't have like, things like that. So that was something that I struggled with at first, because I was like, oh, I'm used to seeing this outliner and all this stuff. And I don't know if that'll be something they add in the future or not, but I know we talk about it internally. But what I want to say about that is, you'll see here when I create a layer, but like if I'm just checking my resolution, I'm going to increase this guy a little bit, and then I'm going to maybe just round this slightly. So I get a little bit of a rounded edge, and then I'll hit space bar. So now I've created a new layer. So here you can see I have these buttons down here. This takes me to, let's see, let me apply this. I think if I want to get out to the root or the world, I can just double click now, and that takes me out here. So basically everything that you see when you mouse over, that's just a layer. And so you can double click, I'm in this layer. I can, from inside this layer, I can go here and double click, and now I'm here. I can double click, and now I'm in here. So it's like you're just constantly and quickly able to like just go where you want to go. I'm in to a layer, I'm out of a layer. I hit Alt S, boom, I'm out. I can mouse over something and just hit S, and now I'm into it. The S stands for scoping. So I don't know if we'll actually call it scoping, but it used to be called like, I'm looking out here and I want to scope into this piece. So I hit S, I'm into it. But I think, again, terminology of that's going to change. We just think of it like layers, double click, I'm in it, double click, I'm over on this layer, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
So it becomes a pretty easy way of navigating your scene without having to worry about, this complex outliner and things like that. But again, there are times when you need it. So I'm not sure where we'll go with that. Okay, so first, let me do a couple things. We'll keep it like this. And now let's say that I want to take this and I want to repeat it around. So I'm going to right click, and I'm going to come over here to these mirror options. And we have symmetry. So I'm not using symmetry, but we have this repetition, and I do want to use repetition. So I click this repetition button, and now it's going to do a radial repeat. And then I can add, value into here, to get, my barrel amounts. And so what's really cool about this is like, these are all referenced or instanced. So if I move this piece, they all move together. If I rotate this piece, they all, rotate together, and so on. And you'll see that as we do work on one of these pieces, it updates all the other ones. Okay, so, but one thing to note is you'll notice, well, I did this whole thing here in the center, right? So all well and good, right? But when I was creating that shack piece, like I had like all the pieces, like I had the deck, and I had the shack itself built. And if you recall, I had, a couple little barrels on the side, and I tried to create a barrel there. So it was kind of off center. So let's do this. Let's select these two pieces, and let's just pretend it was way off here. So it's off center. And now if I come over and I select this guy and I right click and I do the same thing, repetition, well, now all of a sudden the repetition is based on that center origin. So now you're kind of in a situation like, what do I do? This is another way that kind of Modeler works. So I'm just going to undo that. It basically sets these little origins. So you can see that when I right click, you see the origin here. You have your X, Y, and Z, and it's created based on the layer or the group. And we'll talk about groups in a second, but you can see the origins based on this layer, or if there isn't a layer, then it's based on the origin of my scene here. So a quick workaround to this would be, hey, I want this to repeat around this. So all I have to do is select these two pieces. So shift left click, right click, and group them. So now that it's grouped, it's one piece. But if I double click to go into the piece, I still have these two layers that are part of that group. So if I select this guy now and I right click and do repetition, it now is going to repeat around the central of the group. So that's another kind of nice way to work here. So I'll go ahead and just increase these guys up, and let's do something like, I don't know, 28, I guess. And then, it's so now I have this group, right? And so if I double click, there we go. We have our piece here.
Oh, wow.
And I was off center just slightly on this guy, so I can see that's off, but no big deal. I can move it. I can even go in and rescale this guy down for later. But what we want to do now is, okay, this is more like a trash can, right? It's not literally a barrel. So this is where we want to basically kind of, give it that kind of barreling shape where it's like kind of inflated in the middle. So to do that, we'll double click to go into my plank that I have here. And then I'm going to hit W, takes me to my warp tool. And then you can see that I'm just in the warp tool. So I could go in and just grab the piece. But look at that. This is cool because I do it like a change to one piece, and it's referenced, so it updates everything. So I can get some weird wonky shape like this. I don't even know what I'm doing here, but you can get something that's kind of cool like that. So again, if I go out and look, I mean, pretty neat, just by playing around. But
Yeah.
what I want to do is, I have my warp tool here. Like I said, it's on this placement mode, which is surface placement, but I hit G, which is going to take me to like my gizmo placement. Then I might hit R here to reset if I need to, but I think it's okay. There you go. I hit R to reset. And then I'm just going to position this circle. There's this big little dot here at the end for scale, but you can hit Control left, click and drag to scale it up. And so now what I'm doing is I'm just going to scale up my warp and just kind of position it. Now it uses this kind of S-curve fall off. So I'm just kind of encompassing, my warp here. Hold down the space bar and just move on one axis. And you can see that it starts to give me this little bulge here. Now I just need to reposition this so that it gives me the right effect. So there we go. I think that's going to work. See how I'm just bending that?
Yeah.
And now I've just bent everything here. Okay,
Very
so
cool.
that's good. Now, if I go back and grab this piece and scale them inwards, I'll scale them in until the bottom. I'm looking at the bottom and the top meet, but now I have this little gap in the middle, right? So let's go in one more time, and let's grab my old warp tool here, and I'm going to right click, use some symmetry on this guy, and I'm just going to try to warp the sides. So I'll hit the space bar, and let's see, let me just reposition this guy a little bit better. There we go. All right, so
Nice.
now if I just hit V, it takes me to the select tool, and I can go out, and now I've done my warp here. Okay, so that looks good. Let's take this bottom piece, duplicate it, and I'm going to move this guy up. We'll get something like that. Okay, are we still okay on time? Yeah, it looks like
Yeah,
it's
we're still
all right.
good.
All right, so now I'm back in. So you can see I'm moving all over the place, right? I know I'm going kind of quick, but like it's just like you have these pieces. It's just a matter of like, and I kind of like this. Like I said, it's weird that it's freeing. And part of it's like, okay, well the tool isn't there, so are you? Like sometimes I wonder, like, well, are you making an excuse for it, or is it, or is it like, and so I'm trying to always be aware because we're giving feedback to the devs, and the dev team is wonderful. I mean, they're the coolest group of people. They're just so awesome. So it's like, we're giving them feedback, and it's really a joy to speak with them. But then also like, it kind of is a little freeing because I was so used, like I was using Maya mainly. It was like I was always in the outliner and clicking this and this, and that layer editor, and that was a pain. But here it's just like, oh, I just need to go in here. I just look at it and click, and I'm in. That's where I want to go. So now I've got this piece. I'm going to hit my erase tool once more. I'm going to right click to turn off my symmetry because I don't need it. I'm going to hit the button to just the square because I just want to reset it, right? And I'm going to move this into place and scale it down. And I'm just repositioning. So now I love this little outline that you get because it lets me see exactly where I'm going to do a cut. So I'm going to grab this little dot, move it over, and then rotate this piece in. And let's see, I'll do something like this. Now, all I wanted to do, this is cool. So holding down the space bar, and then as I push, now I'm just, doing a beveling, or I'm doing a like a Boolean operation, and I'm pushing that piece in. So now I've just flattened that edge. Cool. And that's all I wanted to do for the top piece. And now I'll come in and grab, whoops, I don't know what I did there. I'll come in and grab this and scale that guy up and push him down. So that's my little top piece. Okay, let's look at another thing. We're still good on time. Let's right click and do a new layer. So, you're always just making a layer anyways. So, like I said, it makes it easy to kind of play with that. So this is just, I'm going to put like a few like little boards here at the top. So I'm just going to make it extra long because, I'm just going to. And let's see, I'll put this in place like that. One thing I've noticed, this is a little bit rotated. So I had my piece rotated, but I can tweak that in a minute. Okay, so we get this. Let's just go ahead and look at my resolution. It's fine there, I think. Do a little fillet. Okay, so hit space bar, select it, and I'm just going to hit Control D, just duplicating it. We are going to have a tool where you can just, duplicate and then move your mouse wheel to, I think that was there at one time, and then there was some issues and they had to take it out. But right now I just kind of do this little manual setup here. Let's see. So I'm going to select all these guys and right click and group them. So now I have just like one piece, right?
Yeah.
So one thing you can do is I can right click and I can say over on my visibility, hey, hide that. I want to grab this guy again and move it up. Now here's a trick. So this guy, I want to use this guy as like a Boolean intersect operation, but I don't know if that's really thick enough. So what I'll do is just double click, I go inside of it. I'm going to grab my warp tool, the cube, and I'm going to scale it all the way up so it's super large. Okay, now here's where I get that little intersection. This is like, for me, I look at this little intersection and I think of, this is like me doing a lasso select of a bunch of vertices. That's how I think of it. So earlier I was saying, hey, you should let go of that. But here's where I'm thinking of a little piece of it, right? So right now it's just on this crazy S fall off. So if I move this a bunch, it's barely working, right? Because it's so soft. But if I put the hardness all the way up, so notice you get like these two like squares. And so if I intersect with my hardness into here, and I'll push this down, you can get some neat stuff. Like here, let's do the hardness up here on the top. And then you see you get this little fall off range. And then if I hold the space bar down, you can get some different taperings and stuff. But really what I'm going to do here is just take the hardness all the way up because I'm not worrying about that. All I want to do with this is just a little extrusion. So that's just a quick way for me to do an extrusion. I use that like all the time. And now I'm going to show all, grab this, and just push it into here. Now I'll grab this and I'm going to right click, go to my Booleans, and I'm going to use, tell it to enable intersect mode. So it's intersect mode. I'm going to select my group of the top planks, right click, and hit apply. And there they go. So I don't need this anymore. So we'll hit delete, and there's my top piece, which looks like this now.
Very cool.
Now I'll push that down into, so now I have the top piece of my barrel and I have the bottom piece, which I want to move in slightly. So there we go. Then I can hit Control A to select everything and then right click and group this. So now I have just one huge group, right?
Yeah.
But like I said, I'm just double clicking to go into my pieces. Let's select, whoops. Let me select this guy. And like I said, if I wanted to look at it from this view and go in and rotate these, I could do that. So see, I can go in and just, it was a little bit like this, but I'm just fixing it. There we go. All right, so we'll go out. Now, let's do a new layer because we're constantly doing layers. We'll grab the clay tool. Let's hit R just to scale, make sure it's all set. And you can see that if I would have just built this in the center, it would be easier because everything would come in automatically centered. And we don't have an orthographic view yet in this, so it does make it slightly difficult, to say the least, to try to, layer this up. But anyways, this is going to be like a rim. So there's an option here for thickness. So if I'm going to increase my thickness out like that. So now I can make this little hole, and I'll control left click and drag until basically I kind of get this guy to line up like this. This is what I want to do. So control click and drag. Again, I'm just working in the tool. I haven't created anything yet. So I'm just going to scale this down, control click. Now I'm holding control left click just to scale that top piece up. So then I'm just going to kind of look and see, and then control left click and drag. There we go. I think that's going to work. So I'm just worrying about the top piece. The bottom piece, because I have this little like kind of, this kind of rounding here, that's why we're getting that issue. Let's right click resolution. I'm going to increase it one more time. I haven't created anything yet though. And we're going to do a fillet because I want to put just a nice little edge on it. And then we'll hit space bar. So now we've created this little ring that I want to have. The next thing we'll do is I hit the W key, jumping over to my warp. And now you can see that I want to target this kind of bottom area. And now I'm just going to play with this and see what I can do. So this is kind of neat. So this little button, this little dot will scale up and down, right? So if I hold down space bar and then click and drag this, I can get a little bevel. Now look at this. I don't want this, but this is cool. So you can see where the two overlapped and look what it created. So if I go out, it created that nice little lip in the
Oh,
bevel piece. So that's
that
kind
is
of
very
neat.
cool.
It's not, yeah, it's not what I wanted for this, but that's okay. We're gonna grab my warp again, push this down, and then it's just a matter of me trying to figure out like, maybe it's more like that, or actually I may just want the hardness all the way up. And no, I don't, because it's giving me too hard of an edge. Let's do that and
And it's
scale
pretty
this up.
versatile, it seems, right? Like you can toggle and change your settings on the sliders, and then depending on whether or not you like something or don't like something, you can just kind of pop back out, try again.
Yeah, that's all I'm doing, precisely. So there we go. I just rounded that slightly there. And then you know what? I'm going to move it up and scale it this way maybe. Okay, and you'll notice that, like, go back to my move and just move. There we go. So now I've just got this little piece here. So we've got that. I'll hit Control D, move it towards the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
I need to flip it. So what I could do, well, you know what? Just a quick trick. I'll hold down Control, left click on the Y just to flip it around. We'll do something like that. Okay, so we got that little piece. And then you know what? I think I'll Control D, and let's put one here in the middle. Control left click and drag this up.
Nice.
And this could be a section here where I want to go in and adjust.
We had Joshua in the chat saying that for cylindrically symmetrical shapes, that using the sphere or capsule feels more natural for scaling. Sometimes you use a box, but
oh, okay. Yeah. And you know what? Because I'm thinking that's probably what I did. But yeah, Joshua. So yeah, whatever he says is the right. He's the master. Yeah, Joshua works on the modeler team, and he's also a prolific artist. I mean, he's incredible. He blows
really
my mind with the work he does. Yeah. So like, yeah, whatever he says, like I'm just a chump up here trying to do this.
not at all, Wes.
Joshua's the real deal. Yeah, I'm a huge fan of Joshua. He's just really, really awesome.
Josh will be on our next Modeler Monday, so Wes, you can hop in and give him tips and chat next time.
There would be nothing I could say that Joshua doesn't know. But yeah, anyways, thank you, Joshua. You're very awesome, man. Okay, so we have this, and there we go. We could say it's something like that, little barrel shape. Something else I'll do is maybe, I don't know, I'll jump into this guy, hit my eraser tool, grab my square. And what I'm going to do is just make a little cut piece. So I'll do something like maybe like that, right? And then just hit space bar, and you can see I'm just making like a little cut. And you know what? I want that to be just, not so intense. So now you can see I just double click to go to this different version. I hit G to hit the surface, and then I'll hit R, flip it, and then rotate it around, and then just hit space bar on that. Same thing. I might come down to this one, go into here.
It's about the small details. And so this is like if you were to bend that metal around the barrel, then that's where the contact.
Yeah, and you've got these little pieces, right? So then the last piece of the puzzle here is I'm going to create another new piece of clay, and then I want to rotate this piece. So I'll hit Control left click on the X-axis, scale it down, give it a nice. Well, I could give it a little chamfer here, a little fillet, something like that. And say it's just a little piece like that. Scale it down. Whoops. Maybe I'm just going to actually do something like this, where it's more rounded. That looks better. Okay, so get this into place. Whoops. Let me rotate that guy. Actually, I can hit G on this one, and that's going to snap it to the surface right where I want it to be. Scale it down. And then here, I'm just going to hit space bar to create that clay. And then I can hit Control D, and then I'm just going to move this into place. So what I'm doing is just going in. Whoops. I think I didn't hit the Control D. What I'm doing there. I think I'm making a mistake.
Oh, good. Do you need to stamp it in?
Just duplicating that piece. There we go.
Yeah.
All right. So these are just like the little, rivets or something like that. So maybe I'll select both these guys and right click and group them. So it's just one piece, and then I can just, Control D, grab it on the Y and flip it around, and then I might have to rotate it or something. But I could place those all over. So again, Control A to select everything, right click, group it. So now I have just one, piece that I can kind of move around. And then from here, you can start duplicating this thing and rotating and moving it around to different places, making
Very
different
cool.
sizes, all this kind of stuff, right?
Tiny barrel.
Yeah, okay. You can make a tiny little barrel.
Yeah.
So things like that. And like I said, I didn't really build this guy to scale. I didn't have any reference or anything, but it was just a few little techniques. So the other thing to talk about really quick, let's get rid of this dude. And we have this guy in place, is export, right? So if we select this and I do file and I want to export, you have these options. So we support a lot of options. In this particular case, I'm just going to keep it at FBX. If you did any like duplicate and then mirror or flip, you want to make sure that you have this selected. So it's on by default. It'll be good. But you have these different options, right? So you can do like raw triangles. I want to do quads, which this will actually do like a remeshing for you, which could be very handy. But I'm just going to say, hey, produce for me UV map triangles. And I'm just going to leave it at 60,000. Okay. Just so we'll get a faster export, and then optimize for hard surface because hard surface. So with this done, I'll click export and I'll call it demo and throw it on my desktop. Now, one thing here, I think this might be like a bug or something, but it's exporting and I don't think it's ever going to say like that it's done. I think it's done already because I can move the viewport now. So never mind that. Again, this is just a beta build, just maybe a little UI bug or something. But what I want to show is like, say we were in Painter now and we do file new. Let's set this to 2048 and let's select the mesh, which is test. No, wait, I said demo, right? I called that demo. Maybe it isn't ready yet. Let's see. Nope, it's not showing up. Let's see. Maybe I'm wrong. It might take a few minutes. Not minutes. It was just a couple seconds when I tested it. But if not, I have a test there we can go to. Oh, there we go. It does say scene exported. Okay, so the thing that I had run into before was that went away and then this stayed there. So I turned my head earlier when I tested it and the exported was there and then it went away and okay. All right, so anyways, let's look at Painter, right? So we'll go in and we'll grab demo. I'm going to leave my resolution at 2048. Definitely no auto unwraps, right? So Modeler did that for us. So we'll click OK. And here we brought it in. So you can see that, it's not awesome on the resolution because I set it just to 60,000, but I just wanted to show you guys what the UVs would do. So I get a pretty good layout. You can see that each one of my planks here, if we set this to like something like, red or something, I can go in and you can see, it's working pretty well here. So the next thing I would do, of course, in my process was just a really quick, mesh map bake. So we'll just turn a few of these on. My curvature, I'm going to set that up. Turn that, okay. So we'll get some ambient occlusion on that and things like that. So it'll be pretty quick. All right. So overall, really quick, there's my barrel. And that was pretty much everything I really want to show. I just want to be able to export and show you guys the UV layout. And you can see that it gave me this single material, which worked out pretty good. So now I can just start to, throw my materials on here. And then for this, I'll just set it to triplanar. I'll get rid of my height and then maybe rotate this 90 degrees and just play around with some of the, the substance stuff here, some of the substance controls. So you get something here pretty quick.
It's looking good.
Okay, yeah. So pretty much that'll be it that I'm going to cover. I think if you wanted to go through any Q&A and stuff like that, I think we got about maybe 5 minutes left if I had it right.
Yeah, I think for the most part, not a whole lot of questions in chat, which is totally okay. I'm actually more curious around like what you think of like Modeler and how you find those inputs, because we do see that you use a lot of desktop and you do have that background in poly modeling. Like, is there anything that you wanted to say about that, like just in finality? Because like there's a lot of really cool techniques that we see you using. Do you think like VR is really necessary? Do you think that it's like a cool add-on? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's a good question. So like, and it's just, I guess just different people are going to have different, thoughts around it. Like, For me, I'm still kind of getting into the VR aspect of things, so it's still
Mhm.
kind of new for me. So like, but I am enjoying it. Like my first thought was I don't want to use VR. Joshua can attest to that. Probably I talked to him about it, but like I was like, I'm not really interested in the VR thing. I don't want to do that. But just for me myself, like the reason I kind of got out of that was, first off, I was seeing the work that Joshua was doing. We have another guy on our team named Kevin Shaw.
Mhm.
He's incredible. I mean, just incredible. And so I went to a training that he was doing, like a little workshop that Kevin was doing for us, and I was watching the way he worked in VR, and I was like, man, that's amazing. I was like, I should give this a shot, right?
Mhm.
So yeah, I jumped in and gave it a shot. Do I think it's necessary? Absolutely. I just think it's another way to work. And for example, like Gio on our team, like he's like
Mhm.
mainly VR, and what he does is incredible. And I do think that as of today, like VR, like if you're doing like organic creatures and stuff, yeah, VR is perfect for that. And there's all these things you can do with the controllers and how you're able to twist your wrist and move that you just can't do like with just a
Mhm.
Wacom pen. And
Right.
so I do think it's freeing. I think it's a new way of working. But again, depending on who you are, like me, it's a little isolating. I don't like having the headset on. I get really hot for some reason. I think it's the foam. I don't know. That foam around the eye.
Yeah,
It's like get
yeah.
all sweaty in it. So, anyways,
That's fair.
yeah, but the biggest thing, and the biggest thing is like I love that the team has like the desktop and the VR, and
Right.
they care equally about both. And the other thing about the modeler team, which I cannot say enough good things about, especially Joshua, who's on here. Joshua, you're such a nice dude, and he's just so talented that like the thing is like just they care so much about both
Yeah.
workflows, right? And how you can have what you want. So I think the neat thing
Mhm.
is that you're able to like choose like what you want to do. Like if you're a desktop person, you can do that. Yeah, to be honest with you, my opinion is it's limited right now. But
Yeah,
again, it's
that's
still
all right.
beta, it's early days. And honestly, but when I really stopped trying to shoehorn a Polygon workflow into it, it really snapped for me and it took off. And then I started being able to do all kinds of stuff in it. So
Mhm.
really lately I've been using just straight up modeler for almost everything I'm doing,
Oh, cool.
which I didn't know would be the case. And then again, now that I opened my mind to say, hey, I'm going to try this VR thing, and I got in, I really liked it.
Yeah.
But again, maybe it's not for everybody. I don't know. I mean, I still wouldn't say I'm 100% VR guy. I'm always going to want to be on the desktop, I think.
Yeah.
But to each his
Yeah.
own. There's something for everybody.
Yeah, that's super cool though, and thank you so much for coming on today. I think that like it's been amazing having you, and so many good tips and tricks too. Like I haven't really considered just how powerful it is, especially when it's coming to like the way in which you use instancing and duplicating, and just even creating like multiple structures really quickly. Like you were saying like I think I might be moving too fast, but honestly, I think that's just a testament to like how quickly the tool is also moving.
Yeah, yeah, and I was just barely doing anything. I mean, you need to get someone like Jonathan. Yeah, Joshua on there who can just really I mean, the stuff he does with his big, large environments. I mean, that's why I tried to make an environment. I was just inspired by what he was doing. So,
Awesome. Yeah.
yeah, it's really comes down to just it is very quick to use. It truly is. So yeah, and it is a lot of fun, once you really get in and get past, some things that are different, but overall it's a lot of fun.
That's excellent. Yeah, and thank you so much for coming on. We do this every other Monday for the most part, so we'd love to have you back on in future again if you want to show us some Unreal Engine tricks, or if we want to see where this barrel is going into the actual production pipeline, where we want to see it end up next.
Oh yeah, I would love to. Yeah, definitely sign me up. I'll definitely come back. And like I said, next time I'll just talk about the export, what I did in Painter, how I set up the whole scene in Unreal, the lighting. We can go over all that, like um, the next kind of part of the process of it. That would be a lot
Yeah.
of fun.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. And thank you for everyone who joined us today. Super enthused that you guys are in chatting online, and big shout out to the MD team who also made it into chat today too. Nothing but feel good vibes over here. So we'll see you guys next time.
Yeah.
Ciao,
Thank you
everyone.
guys. See you guys.
Bye.